Welcome to dojo.live, the place where top minds in travel and hospitality check in to share insights and breakthroughs shaping the industry. Brought to you by Encora, your trusted partner for AI, cloud, and data-driven innovation. Enjoy your stay. Hello, and welcome once again to Dojo Live. On Dojo Live, we have candid conversations with industry leaders who are tackling the biggest challenges in travel and hospitality. I am your host, Kim Lantis, and today is Thursday, May 15th, 2025. This is the final episode of our Redefining the Digital Storefront, Insights from Hospitality's Direct Booking Leaders. You know, over the past weeks, it has been a fun ride, lots of learning. We've explored how AI, data, a little bit of loyalty, a lot of personalization are transforming the guest journey and, of course, making smarter discovery and therefore better bookings directly on those booking engines. We've learned from Velocity Travel, P3 Hotels, Savvy, Reside, Zucchetti, IDS Next, that was yesterday's show, all about unified data. But to close out the series, loyalty once again is the name of the game. We're going to be looking at why instant rewards and not points are becoming the new loyalty currency for driving direct bookings to hotels. That's what we're here to find out. I'm not going to be finding out alone. Here once again is my co-host, America Guerrero.
Hello, Kim. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Ame. And welcome to our guest, Ellis Connolly, who is the Chief Revenue Officer at Laasie. Ellis, we're going to be discussing from rewards to revenue, how loyalty drives more direct hotel bookings. Thank you for joining us once again here on Dojo Live. It's great to have you back.
Yeah, so great to be here. I didn't know I was the anchor to the series, but yeah, very exciting. And, you know, I would say loyalty, you know, is the heartbeat of a lot of commercial engines. So all of the great companies you just mentioned before, some of whom are great partners of ours. Yeah, great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me back.
I love it. Thank you. You know, to get us started, for those who might not know you, please share a bit about your journey in hospitality, what led you to Laasie, and what keeps you excited in the industry.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to tell you how many years. It's getting up there a little bit now, but I've been most recently with Laasie for about 3 years. And prior to that, I was with Sabre, and I just think I saw Ethan on a different series that you guys were doing a couple of days ago.
That he was supposed to be with us yesterday. Unfortunately, that did not go through. We'll have Ethan back, but we'll count on him. But several Sabre folks have been here. Matt Ben, Frank Trampert.
Oh yeah, I love all those former colleagues. So, you know, I've been in kind of travel and hospitality tech for a couple of years, from a revenue management perspective, from a social media analytics and kind of CRM perspective. And, you know, when Jen and I, who's our founder and CEO, got to talking, you know, about three and a half years ago, I was an advisor at the time with Laasie, and she was really like talking about things that the industry just wasn't leaning into. And it was around, you know, like points work. And I know we're going to talk about this more, but like points work for certain hotels and certain groups, like geographical breadth and, just different large hotel groups, essentially. And, you know, the mid-market or the small group was really this like untapped market of where you may be doing some loyalty, but loyalty means something different to a lot of different people. So when we just started,
a huge portion of the group.
Yeah, exactly. So when we just started talking about that and found out how she brought the company to life, and you know, I got really excited. So, you know, coming from big corporate organizations, I've worked in startups before. I will say I'm probably having the most fun that I've had at a company for like 10, 12 years. So that's what keeps me up, and that's what keeps me coming back. I love talking about kind of things that not just we're doing at Laasie, but how the industry is moving forward. And, even from 10 years ago, what we're looking at today is, there's a stark contrast and how we're trying to do business. So.
Well, good for you. And what a journey. So now let's kick it off, specifically to loyalty with the shift we're seeing today. So you mentioned some of that a little bit, but why are so many hotels moving away from traditional points-based programs to what you mentioned in your title, instant rewards? And how is that changing the way guests are booking?
Yeah. Well, first, let me start by saying points will never go away. Right? Like the large brands will never move away from points, and nor would that be a smart move, right? But when you come down market a little bit and you look at small groups of hotels or even like single hotels that are trying to run points programs, when we start to have conversations with these folks and we look at like the buckets of travelers that are within those loyalty programs, number one, that are actually redeeming points, the number is quite low. Number two, the number of members in a program that's actually generated enough points to do anything of significant benefit to them is very low as well. And then when you start to talk about the concept of, hey, would you, and this is just to simplify it for the audience, right? It's like, hey, I know you only travel twice a year, right? Once with your family and maybe once for business. And we're in a different business, like 100,000 miles in the air for me. So I have a very different perspective. But it's like, would you rather have points or would you rather have this, complimentary walking food tour of the city that you're going to that's supported by the hotel, right? 99 times out of 100, if I'm never going to come back to that hotel, I'm going to take the walking tour. And what I'm going to say when I leave and come home from that vacation, I'm not going to say, oh man, I went to Nashville and it was an amazing experience. And you know what? I earned 1,800 points on my stay. Like nobody says that. The same thing with cash back, right? It's like, oh yeah, I went to Nashville. Oh yeah, and I got, $13 cash back. Nobody talks about that. What they're going to talk about are the activations at the property. They're going to talk about that walking food tour, right? And I'm overemphasizing on this to prove a point. But that's kind of like, that's the nucleus of what we're trying to get across, which is there's a lot more that we can do as lodging and accommodation providers in order to better an experience for a guest. Now, if you still want to give points and layer this in on top of it, yeah, so be it, but do that. But yeah, I just think there's a lot of room for us to be able to do some amazing things.
I totally hear you. And this relates to me because I think I've mentioned this hotel on the show before. For those of the audience who might not know, I live in northern Mexico. 2-3 times a year, we'll drive up to Tucson, Arizona, do some shopping, see a concert or whatever. And I happened to come across a hotel, Hotel McCoy, via Expedia, OTA, which we'll get to here later out in the show. But what was cool is even though I booked through the OTA, they still gave me these little like poker chips for free complimentary drinks at their particular hotel. They do local brews and local wines only. And it just got this coolest vibe. I happened to find it via the OTA. But ever since, and even though I only go 2-3 times a year, where do I stay? Hotel McCoy. And where do I do it? Direct booking.
See, so there you go.
Yeah.
So essentially what they've done is they've conquested you, right? So they've done exactly what, folks in the independent hotel space and the brands talk about is how do we take somebody that's booked from an OTA, we call it OTA conquesting, and get them to book direct the next time. And it's about the experience and the value that they provided when you got there. And putting that into a path to purchase, a loyalty journey, a re-engagement strategy is all a part of loyalty, right? It's all a part of how do we get Kim to come back to the Hotel McCoy, which I believe is a Cloudbeds customer. And I was just on their website a few days ago. That's why when you said that, I was pointing my finger. Super cool brand, by the way. But yeah, that's, those are just like the spokes of loyalty, right? And there's so many spokes that spread out from loyalty that live within rate strategies, that live within, front desk communication strategies that, it spawns across the entire organization from digital to personal. And we'll talk a bit about that more, but I think, yeah, that's good to hear. And I do love that hotel. I haven't stayed yet, but I do love that hotel.
I think you already proved your point, but let's talk about conversion, okay? So how do instant rewards influence booking behavior in the moment, as you said? And what kind of uplift are all hotels seeing in direct bookings or repeat stays when they adopt this model, like Kim shared as an example? Could you share more about that?
Yeah, most definitely. And the great thing is, at least from the Laasie perspective, and there are other companies that do things similar, right? But from the Laasie perspective, we have data that supports and shows all of this. It all starts with, how do you want to deliver your loyalty strategy from the way tip top of your marketing funnel? So think pay-per-click, SEO, right? Those things where the OTAs are highly competitive in driving web traffic, where they're talking about their genius program, one key, right? Those OTA loyalty strategies. So when we sit back and we say, hey, small group of hotels, well, so we work with like Benchmark Hotels and Resorts, right? Amazing collection of amazing resorts, I would say. So we run the Mosaic Rewards program. Well, when you think about like, how do you go and compete with a big brand from a loyalty perspective, you have to be thinking about the same ways in which they're driving traffic. And we're already doing it, but it's just making small little tweaks. And I'm going to get to the answer here in a second, America. But it's like, if you're going to deploy some type of loyalty strategy in order to shift share from OTAs and create re-engagement and drive more repeat bookings, you've got to start talking about it way before the traveler gets to the website, so that they're engaged and they understand. And you could start to tell a story at the top of the funnel that gets them to book and continues throughout that entire path to purchase. So when you talk about what happens if you book direct with my hotel, and rewards and instant rewards is a part of that narrative. And then when you go from that pay-per-click ad into the booking engine where the reward content is surfaced, right? So now you're talking about it, you've actioned it, you're delivering on what you've talked about. And then they get through that path to purchase, they confirm, because, hey, I could go to an OTA or I could book here. I'm not going to, I don't care about my points. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but I'm going to get this amazing experience at this property. And then you book. Where Laasie comes in is we help deliver the selection of that reward content and then make sure that guest gets it. So inventory management, redemption control, all those types of things. We typically see anywhere from like 24 to 40% increase in conversion. Now, this isn't increasing, I just want to be clear, this isn't increasing your overall conversion. This is when we run tests where you've got instant reward content visible and shown versus it not being shown. When it's shown, we convert way higher, right? And typically what happens in the Laasie scenario is, we have folks that want to test. And by all means, we are more than happy to test. We do it all the time. I'm proud to say we have never lost. What typically happens is the conversion is those numbers, 20, let's call it 24 to 40%. And they're like, okay, let's just stop the test. Let's just keep it all on the A version so that we can keep converting at a much higher clip. Now, what we also look at and what we also do is kind of like our mantra of always be testing, right? Which is, what reward content is delivering better conversion? What way in which the content is written is converting higher, right? If you're offering multiple rewards that are selectable, which reward sits on top versus in the middle versus on the bottom is converting at a higher rate, right? So all those things we're consistently thinking about. And remember, we work with 3,000 hotels. So we sit on this treasure trove of data and we're able to analyze and look at, hey, we know this converts higher when we say it this way. We know this may maybe not be converting as high. Or a hotel may say, no, I want it to say this. And we'll say, well, we have data that shows that's probably not the best way. We'll do it, but we'll A/B it against something else, and we'll show you where you're going to get the highest conversion.
Yeah,
Now, just know that also spreads across other loyalty initiatives. So when you think about, yes, getting the direct booking is by far the most important. But as we all know, like in a very good scenario, 3% of folks that land on your website will actually make it through to the confirmation page of the booking engine. So what do you do with the other 97% of travelers that you've driven or paid for in some way to get to your website? That's a question. What do you do with those folks?
What do you do? I guess this is where the personalization piece, the first party data, those big buzzwords come into play.
Yeah.
So can you help ground that? What do you do with these
What
folks?
do you do?
Like, how do you turn this 97% via their behavior, their preferences, the loyalty signals you're picking up on into the actionable offer that leads to the booking? What did you have an answer? What do you do?
Of course.
Tell me.
Let me tell you what most hotels do. First, is most hotels, and I'm looking in the camera because I know there's hoteliers watching this, so I'm looking out, and they're all going to go to their websites after I say this. Most hoteliers in the footer of their website say, sign up for our newsletter, and we'll send you specials and promotions. That's almost the extent of what 95% of all hotels do, right? From a first party data capture, outside of like cart abandonment, right? So, okay. Well, what if you offered enrollment into a very tangible program, right? Like a loyalty program that would give immediate benefits for enrolling into the program? What if I were to give you a 12-month digital subscription to Travel and Leisure just for joining my loyalty program, right? So there's certain things that Laasie has the capabilities to do that sit across all the kind of pillars of loyalty, right? And the way we think about loyalty at Laasie is there's kind of like three core pillars, right? There's the enrollment pillar, because if you don't have people in a program, it's kind of hard to make it successful. So it's the enrollment piece. Then it's the engagement piece, which is how do you communicate with your guests? So how do you look at historical data? How do you look at personalizing reward content for guests? So that's the engagement piece. And then the enrichment piece, which is now that we sit on this treasure trove of data, how do we use that? Who do we give that to, right? And in Laasie's scenario, we typically are pushing data into a CRM, into a PMS, or into a data lake scenario in some of our bigger customer plays. But, doing things like we know, and we'll use the Hotel McCoy. They're getting tons of shouts out here. So maybe they'll give you a comped rate next time you go stay.
Yeah.
We know that Kim has stayed at the Hotel McCoy. We know that she typically comes up during these 2 times a year, as you had mentioned. We know that she selected the bar and bargain reward, right? Because she had a glass of wine and a local organic brew. And we also know that she hasn't stayed here in the last 90 days, right? So just being very generic, we could through the Laasie type of mindset is say, okay, we know Kim has associated herself to this type of reward category. Other things that we have in that category, we could serve in front of her, put that in the subject line of your email, right? Get her to open that. She's familiar with the brand already. Now we're tying into the F&B or the organic beverage scenario, food, the wine component, and we're going to entice her to come back in, for a wine tasting or something along those lines. So I mean, again, being very generic and oversimplified. But we have the capabilities that we support that through categorization of rewards, propensity of selection modeling, and all those types of things. So it's a lot of stuff that we're doing. Okay, was that a good answer, America? I'm sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there. The answer was
great.
24 to 40% when I go back to it.
Thank you for the percentage, and thank you for the whole context so we can all understand the nature of these handles. But go ahead, Kim, please.
Yeah, perfect. You know, I think it's time to sort of get a bit specific. We got the one more time, Hotel McCoy, real world success story for me, at least the Kim Lantis success story. But do you have any others that you can share where hotels have implemented reward approaches, you know, with Laasie or similar, and saw these measurable results, you know, whether it's in conversion, the direct channel growth, retention, uh, share.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a case study in market with Benchmark. I'm not going to go kind of like super deep into the metrics there. But I think when when you look at the key KPIs that hoteliers are looking to succeed in when deploying a loyalty strategy, it's, for us and the way that we deploy loyalty, it's typically conversion, right? Direct booking conversion. It's like member spend, right? Our members spending more than non-members. It's our members spending higher on ADRs, right? Which with member rate strategies typically isn't the case, but there's some strategies that you could do to help get around that. Length of stay, right? Our members staying longer. And then the booking window, right? Members of hotels, because they're typically familiar with the brands or familiar with the properties, will book further out in advance, right? So all of those things, you might be thinking like, well, why does it matter if somebody books further out? Well, from a revenue management perspective, if people are booking further out, you can revenue manage your property better because, right, you have a little bit less inventory. You might be able to just increase your pricing, things of
And you
that.
can upsell them in
Right,
that
and
window.
exactly, and you can upsell them, and you could drive ancillary revenue, right? And that was the last kind of key KPI that I was going to share, which is how much share of wallet are we driving from the guest as well. So all those things trend always upwards for Laasie customers. And Benchmark is a great case study and story for us. But then we also have single independent hotels that do exceptionally well too, right? Like the Island Resort at Fort Walton, right? Down in Florida. Amazing property, shifts a ton of share from OTAs and drives a ton of ancillary spend, but they have the ancillaries to be able to deliver to those guests, right? So that's another piece. Now, the great thing about Laasie is that maybe you're a property that doesn't have a ton of ancillaries. Okay, you have a cafe or you do breakfast, but you don't have spa, you don't have golf, right? You don't have, you're not a resort. So you can actually tap into the Laasie merchant marketplace, right? So we have over 1,000 merchant partners that we've already gone out and negotiated offers and reward content on behalf of our 3,000 hotels. So if you want to go in as a hotel and leverage our merchant network, you're more than welcome to use that as like a buffet of options and say, okay, I have a yoga activation on the roof that we do. So I want to use your Aloe Moves offer, or I want to use your Fabletics offer and things of that nature, right? So all of that stuff, when you begin to piece it together, you can start to look at how you grow a strategy. Now, I'll go back to one of the comments that I made at the beginning, which was loyalty is very different for everyone, right? Because what Evan and his team are doing at Benchmark is amazing. And we've been customers for years. So that program is advanced and we're doing interesting things and really cool stuff, right? But when some folks just start with us and they only have a newsletter, right? And today their loyalty strategy is, okay, I just need to email my newsletter to try to drive bookings. How do you take that and then kind of generate more from that? And how do you create more touch points without being overbearing, right? And then, maybe some folks, a loyalty strategy could just be, hey, I really need to enroll more people into my email newsletter strategy because I drive a ton of revenue from that. So how does instant rewards help that? It's very simple. Sign up for the newsletter, get this instant reward, right? Pretty straightforward. So like all of those pieces, when you start to put them together, are pretty fun, pretty fun pieces to play. Now, we span the whole gamut, right? And we have hotels that are doing, member rate strategies, member referrals. we have like different type of milestone capabilities. Like, let's say you've got a portfolio of hotels, and some sit at the beach, some sit in urban, and some sit in ski. And you want to create a milestone that says, hey, stay at each one of these types of properties and you get a specific reward.
Oh, wow.
We do that stuff too.
That
Right?
will be my favorite game of life.
Look at
Exactly.
I actually have this was not planned, but this is here local to the city in which I live in. It's a coffee passport.
Yeah.
And I get to go to all local coffee shops and get a stamp in my passport, and
there you go.
Kind of like that.
And then, well, what do they give you when you after you do it all?
That's a good question. I don't actually think there's. Well, some of them do have QR codes with like discounts and things, but it's so fun. It got me wanting to go to coffee shops. So regardless of my reward, it's freaking fun.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's also this. I mean, for some that you are exactly hitting on gamification. Right. So that is exactly what helps drive decisions. Right. Because you could be looking at the book and you can say, oh, I haven't tried this one yet. Let's go on Saturday. Right. I mean, it's in a coffee shop example, but yeah, that's fantastic. I love that.
You're talking about merchant options, gamification. There is a lot of creativity. Can you help me with it? Creativity. Sorry, that's an easy word for me. Creativity. But I'm curious about the technology. Let's talk about integration. So many hoteliers fear loyalty means long tech implementations and operational headaches. So what's the actual lift involved in implementations and in getting started with Laasie? And how quick can hotels expect ROI?
Yeah, so ROI comes pretty quickly based on driving more direct bookings. So for us, the ROI hits pretty quickly once you launch the program. You're exactly right. The second, in some instances, the word loyalty is mentioned into a hotelier or a hotel group, everyone kind of takes a step back and they're like, oh, I have to get operations involved, marketing and brand and, all these different things, which is true in some cases. But the way that we've built the product and the way that we're able to go from crawl, walk to run is you don't need to start with all in, right? You don't need to have everything from the entire program exactly defined as it needs to be, like you would with a points-based program, right? With a points-based program, if somebody hits a certain amount of points, you have to give them something. If there's another amount of points, you have to give them something. With Laasie, the way that we're able to deliver a solution is the reward that's given upon booking, the immediate gratification, is directly reflected by the value of the reservation that just happened. And then the reward isn't delivered until the guest checks in or 24 hours prior to the guest checks in. So it's there's always a safety net of caution that we're able to provide to hoteliers. Now, when you talk about like standing up a loyalty solution, for us, we can do it very quickly. So we've launched loyalty programs within 30 days. Now, there is some creative assets that need to happen in order for us to launch successfully. So I would tell you this, where the cycles start to extend is not from a lack of technology being able to be implemented. It's typically from a lack of imagery that's supported by the hotel that we're able to plug into the loyalty portal for the guests to see, right? So, and as everybody knows, right, you're supposed to have something on Wednesday, then it's Friday, oh, now it's Monday, and that's a whole week, right? So if you put it in that perspective, you could see. Now, what we actually do, though, I mean, each account that is stood up on Laasie has a team of 3 folks that are dedicated to that account. And again, I just go back. We've rolled this out with 3,000 hotels, so we have it down to a science on what's needed, how to get there, recommendations on how to do it, what it should look and sound like, what converts highest, which rewards are the most selected within specific regions. Like we have all that data. And we lay it all out there during implementation. Now, when you talk about like connecting, we just recently launched our PMS and booking engine connection to Muse. I would say probably our deepest integrated partner is Synexis and Sabre, but we also do stuff with TravelClick. We do stuff. I don't know, P3. I know they were on here recently. So it's, for us, I'm on the commercial side of the business. So I just say, oh, we just flip a switch and we turn it on. I know that's not the case. But, technically for us, all the pipes are built. So we are just, lighting up the integration. We QA it for a day or two, make sure it's all synced, and then you're live and ready to go.
Nice. You talked about that balance with integrations with amazing partners. We also want to loop it back to having to balance with the OTAs, right? We have that, there is that reality. I think the Hotel McCoy, again, being a great example, that's how I found them. But now we can also switch that to direct bookings. So how are other examples, how can loyalty programs be used strategically, not just with a discount lever, but as a tool to reduce, utilize and form that partnership with OTAs, but also ultimately reduce that dependency, and attract those high intent guests again and again.
Yeah, I think shifting share is a very massive strategy that's got a lot of different, kind of levers to be able to pull in it. But, I'll go back to how loyalty and the communication of loyalty help shift share, right? So when folks are looking for hotels, and this is all documented, right? Like in the discovery phase or the dreaming phase of travel, like of course they're looking at OTAs, they're looking at TripAdvisor. A lot of the times they're going to the hotel website to be able to look, right? So it's important as a hotel on that website in order to talk about the benefits of booking direct, right? Whether you have a loyalty program or not, right? Because you can still deliver benefits to travelers by booking direct without having a loyalty program, right? So you can put it under a rate code, and under that rate code, they got benefits, like all that can happen. So that's kind of number one. Number two, kind of moving, that's at the bottom of the funnel. Number two, moving up to the mid of the funnel, like meta search, right? OTAs kill it in meta search. They're bidding on everybody, especially the high producing hotels and high tier 1 markets. So do the same there, right? You can add content extensions within the meta search environment to talk about, if you bid in the first or second place, I'll be clear there, but you can talk about instant gratification, instant rewards with your booking, right? You could talk about the same types of things that Genius program and One Key does as well. And then the last piece that I'll talk about is actually the conquesting strategy, because OTAs are a part of everyone's channel mix strategy, right? The business needs them to survive. They get a bad rap from hoteliers, but there are a lot of hotels that live off of OTAs and really don't care about direct. I mean, it depends on what part of the world you're on, but that does happen. But it's really about, what do you do with that guest when they get to the hotel in order to get them to come back and book again, right? So I think a combination from the lens that we have, right? There's a lot of other things that marketeers are doing in order to support shift share. But if you could get that communication about the program or the direct booked benefits from the top of the funnel, the middle funnel, and when it gets to the website, if you're not doing that, that's like table stakes, right? You kind of got to get that kind of aligned. You'd be surprised how many hotels don't, right? Like the messaging they put out in their top of funnel marketing doesn't match what's on the booking engine, right? So you have to get continuity within that story. And then really do a great job when guests check in order to get them to be conquested to direct bookers next time.
Got it.
And that is how you shift share. A small part.
Love it.
Okay. So looking toward the future, what emerging guest behaviors or technologies do you think will redefine loyalty and booking over the 12 to 24 months? Everything is changing so fast with AI and everything, personalization. So what are you thinking?
I mean, I think a lot. I look at like how folks are going to search and book travel, through ChatGPT or other agents. I think about what that means for, digital marketing and SEO strategies of the future. I think about like the agentic AI that may sit on websites to help travelers through the path to purchase, right? I think today we're still sort of in like the automated FAQ universe. So I'm actually excited to see kind of what that looks like in the next 2 years and the progression around that. And I think I know for a fact, because of the conversations we're engaged with at brands, large ones, is instant gratification is going to play a much bigger part in loyalty strategies than it has in the past. So we call it parallel to points here internally, but it's points or, right? Because you've got loyalty programs today with hundreds of millions of members. But you look at those hundreds of millions of members and see how many travel 2 times or less per year. It's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot more than we all think, trust me. So how do you get the traveler that's only booked once to book twice, to who is never going to become a gold or a platinum member, right? What is it that you can do to incentivize that traveler to book again with being profitable and cost effective, right?
Because ultimately it all adds up, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. But, I think there's a lot of ways to create perceived value for guests with very low to, if any, cost, right?
Yeah.
So those are, and I'll leave you guys with this. The member rate strategy that hoteliers do. All members receive 10% off if you become a member. Like, yes, discounting is a part of loyalty and that works. But think about this for a second. Imagine instead of doing 10%, like you're doing a 10% strategy now and you've got 6,000 hotels. Imagine if you went in and said, we're going to do 5% off, but an instant reward that has a perceived value that matches the total of the previous discounted rate, right? And that reward only costs you, let's just say $1, right? So now you're essentially taking 4% back to the bottom line versus giving away 10% on the member rate.
And it's 2 birds with 1 stone, because now you're covering the repeats or the people you already know are in the program and everyone else.
But it's just thinking about it differently, right? You don't have to give away the house in order to drive traffic, right? So that's kind of some of the strategies and some of the point of views that we're talking about with some of our customers.
I think you're right in terms of the instant gratification, because we're also looking, at least this is where my brain is taking it, generational shifts.
Yeah.
And the younger generation who's now the traveler and what they're used to in terms of social media and TikToks and influencers. And it's like nobody has to wait anymore for anything in terms of just, and so it makes a lot of sense that would trickle down and be the way in which they're wanting to buy and book. A final question here as we're wrapping up. If a hotelier could take just one step right now, this quarter, to improve their direct booking through loyalty, what would you recommend they do?
So, and I'm sorry, it kind of paused there on me. So I think I missed the middle of that question.
I can repeat it. I said, if a hotelier could take one step this quarter right now to improve their direct bookings through loyalty, what would you recommend that they do?
I would recommend incorporating instant rewards into the path to purchase. Like super easy, very quick, deliver immediate impact to your business, like from the second you launch it.
All right.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. I love it. That is the wrap of today's episode and our final installment of our direct booking series here on Dojo Live. Thank you once again, Ellis Connolly, for sharing your key insights on instant booking and loyalty, what that means for direct booking. If our audience wants to get a hold of you directly or learn more about Laasie, how should they go about doing that?
You could reach out to Laasie at info@Laasie. And by the way, we spell it Laasie. SIE, because that's the acronym for loyalty as a service. Yeah. So reach out to us at info@lassie.ai, and we're happy to help you out, get you whatever you need.
Perfect. Fantastic. We'd also like to extend our gratitude to our sponsor, Encora, for making these amazing conversations possible. Encora partners with travel and hospitality companies to accelerate innovation through world-class engineering solutions. And of course, if you enjoy these conversations, and I hope you did, follow us on a wide variety of socials, including LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and X. We've also got a Spotify account if audio is your thing. And yeah, we'll be in touch. We'll be also announcing upcoming shows. We've got some great ideas with consultants coming up to shift a little bit from the technology side, a few more Spanish shows. And of course, Dojo Live is headed to high tech as well. So we will see you there. And yeah, nominate someone as well if you'd like to see them on our show. We're always looking to have those conversations. Thank you once again, Ellis. And until next time, stay curious, stay innovative, and bye for now.
Bye.